right.
What's
the
up, man?
Barbershop.
What's going on, Doc?
Who cutting hair up in here today?
Oh, it's several, but it is a weight.
It's a weight.
And I'm next.
Yeah.
I'm next.
You next.
So have a seat. Have a seat.
Have a seat, brother.
I'm sitting close to the barber. Look here.
I'm still next.
Yeah.
Y'all all right today?
We're good, man.
All right, man.
Good.
Man, all of this wisdom up in here, man. What y'all got on the
We just
table?
been sitting here, man, talking about this, the pressures of the pandemic, man, and the anxiety and the angst and the trepidations that have been going on with that, man. And the brothers have been sharing, man, that they too, we as men have been dealing with a lot of things because there's some pressures that's on us that we couldn't have even plan for, And so, man, it's been different. It's been different, to be able to deal with these situations. The anxiety of sometimes reduced income, and then we locked in with sometimes with people you don't really like.
That's what we're really talking about. You're being honest. We're talking about being stuck in the house with these wives and these kids.
Yeah. You got it.
Exactly.
You got to deal with that, man. And I was listening to Ricky Smiley say, man, the kids. I heard Pastor say, my pastor said, the kids eat all day long. Ricky Smiley said, let them kids have a school stomach. Because they don't eat at school like that every day.
That's right.
So
That's right.
You're buying,
Right.
Now, that's the truth.
the real deal. You're buying 5 boxes of cereal now where there was only 2.
That's
right.
So
That's
the
right.
income sometimes has gone down.
Yeah.
Yeah. But the expenses are going up.
That's
so,
right.
man, how do we deal with that? Give me some feedback, man, because those are some real pressures, man, that brothers have to deal with. We deal with pressures. I know we men, and we said we can handle anything that come our way, and we've been told we can handle that. But there's some times that we need some private moments where we can kind of regurgitate all this stuff that's inside of us.
Yeah. Well, I'll be honest with you. So you guys know that I'm married with 2 kids, and again, we've been stuck in the house just like everybody else. And one of the things that me and my wife, we'd agreed to is we just kind of have our own time. And so for her, exercise and taking a walk with our neighbor, that's her time every day. So she does that. They walk 3 to 5 miles, and she's gone for about an hour and a half. Mm-hmm. And I can do whatever I need to do or whatever I want to do for that time that she's gone. But she does that every day, and that gives me a little bit of time and gives her a little space, and that works really well for us.
That's cool. You all can manage and you come to an agreement that that's what happens. But as a single brother, I was telling the brother the other day, I don't have the nagging going on. I'm chill, man. And so the only issue is me. That's on the real.
So you're arguing with yourself.
So yeah. But then even that quiet time, man, that quiet space. What do you do, and how do you manage that quiet space when it ain't nobody but you? So I picked up a little extra prayer time, that kind of thing. Watch more movies now than I've watched in probably all of my life, just selectively so, and reading a lot of articles, man. I try to feed myself something other than the mainstream media, because the mainstream media many times don't hit us where we're hurting,
Right.
And that's my real concern with the issues that are going on with the George Floyd and all that, DWB, driving while black, all of those are real issues, man. Yep. And so I'm talking to brothers all around, man, to say, hey, man, how you handle it? I said, man, everybody has a different way to handle their pressure.
Yeah, there's just a lot of anxiety among all of us, and I think that's one of the reasons that you see a lot of these shootings that are going on, because people are just trapped in their pressurized life, and they're having to find some releases, and they're finding the wrong thing.
Sure.
Yeah.
You go to God, you pray, and that helps to balance things out. But I've been working from home since March of 2020.
Wow.
My wife has been working from home since about April of 2020. So we kind of find our own corners of the house, and she's in one corner and I'm in another corner, and we have to go out of our way to kind of meet. Our jobs are both demanding, so that takes a lot of our time.
Sure.
But I'm a golfer, so I do play golf. And even during the pandemic and during COVID, that's kind of been one of the safe havens for people who enjoy that sport, because you do it outdoors.
Right.
You're not in anybody's face. You're not riding with anybody in a cart. So it's one of the safe things that I've found to do during this time. And it's helped me a lot just to find something else to do.
Well, I don't want to run past this single man and this married man here. And here's the reality for young men my age. I'm a young single brother, and being trapped in the house now because of this pandemic has forced a new reckoning on my life, right? There's only so much praying. There's only so much reading the Bible. There's only so much meditating before you want to hear some turn off the lights.
Uh-oh.
And come closer. See, you used to could fight those urges.
Say that again. Say that again. Do that again.
But bro,
I'm gonna just,
Yeah,
I need some experience. I need some wisdom from the brothers to help me and my brothers understand, what we need to do when the praying run out, the meditating run out, the Bible reading runs out, and Luther comes on or Teddy comes on, and you in a place now where you used to could leave the house and enjoy fellowship with the brothers or enjoy fellowship out in the world. But now I'm trapped in the house with myself. And everybody else is on their social media pages, and they living this life, and they having late night companies. What is a young brother like myself supposed to do?
Well, Hamp, I myself personally, I've decided that I wasn't going to stay in the house all the time. Houston has so much to see and so much to do.
Right.
I made myself personally, I'd take me a ride a couple of times a week, and specifically a Sunday evening ride after a good meal. It was something I always did. And then I'd do it during the week, that time, just take me a ride, man, and just scroll. I've ended up all the way in Galveston a couple of times, down in Seabrook a couple of times, just strolling, man. And that allows my mind to flow. Rather than having the confines of those four walls at home, man. That has been real helpful for me to just cruise.
Okay.
Yeah. And find a hobby. I think finding something
Sure.
to do other than, because I think you're right. I think there's only so much reading the Bible, so much
Sure.
praying that an individual can do over a period of time. You got to find something to do that you like, you enjoy. I think Brother Jamie said, which makes a whole lot of sense. They go golfing. You find something to do that's pleasing to you. It takes up a lot of that negative energy. For me, I did a whole lot of work in my backyard. I practically renovated the backyard. Spent a lot of time back there, and I just started doing a whole lot of projects. I'm married, so I found a lot of projects that prior to the pandemic that I just kept putting on the back burner. And then when the pandemic came, it forced me to have to deal with, as you said, a reckoning, have to deal with some of the things that you just kind of left and didn't deal with because you were always talking about doing work and doing this and doing that. And so I think you ultimately have to find something to do. Put some your mind to something positive. Yeah.
A lot of this is, doing a hobby, whatever it happens to be. I think if you find some way to exert that energy
Yeah.
that you have built up,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
that will help a lot,
Yeah.
whether it's basketball or golf or football or throwing the ball in the park. You can go to Memorial Park, man. You can do a lot of things. You can walk around that park,
Yeah.
and that'll take a lot of time.
So what you're telling me is don't turn off the lights, leave them on.
Well, I can't speak to that.
This young man right here said he's single. He's
I'm a
tired of
married
looking at himself in the mirror. So you got to get outside.
Yeah. I tell you what.
But be
All you
prayerful in
brothers
the
And I'll tell you
vaccinated?
what, one thing, the sights are
Yeah.
out there.
They out there.
They're stimulating to your eyes.
Right.
So that'll help you some.
I tell
in the
you
park.
what. I tell you what. You brothers vaccinated?
Yeah.
Yes,
sir.
Absolutely.
Yes, sir.
I need my garage painted. I need to paint my fence.
You too late.
I need to wash my driveway out.
we out and about now.
We all have that same list.
Yeah.
But one thing I would like to share with you, what you're saying is that I've been guilty of not taking that time. And I know what that'll do to you because we all need our time.
Sure. Yeah.
That's
And
right.
that's the one thing that we have to be honest about the situation. Sometimes you have responsibilities, but you have to really be honest about what you need. and sometimes you look at whatever. And if you don't get that balance, you're not going to be any good for the other people, other responsibilities. Even being a single man, you have, your job, a lot of other different things. It eventually spill over to that.
Yeah.
And so that's what I've been guilty of myself. So we have to make sure we find a way to, whatever it is we need to do. And friends and, other different things like that. You just have to do it.
You can always get what you need in the barbershop.
City Hall, man. City Hall.
The other thing too is I didn't realize how wound up I was until the pandemic hit.
Yeah.
I'm a priority guy. In the morning, I already have a prioritized list of what I got to take care of for the week, for the day. And so when the pandemic hit, I didn't have a list. And I started realizing that I'm a systematic thinker. I have to be doing something and knocking something out. And when that pandemic hit, oh my gosh, I thought I was going to lose my mind because there was nothing for me to do. There was no work, there was no counseling, there was no preaching, it was nothing to do. And so as a result of that, I had to deal with, I think as Reverend Murphy said, I had to deal with me. And I had to deal with how I prioritize life. And so, you start assessing things differently. And then you start rearranging that priority list. And then you start realizing the things that you prioritized really weren't priorities. There were things that you thought you needed to make you successful.
It's a to-do list.
Wow.
It's a to-do list.
Yeah.
It's a to-do
And
list.
I think to add on to that, now that you've looked at your list a little bit differently, when things do open up, your priorities are going to be a little bit different. At least for me, that's going to be the case.
Right.
We would always be ripping and running and doing this and doing this and make sure we're hitting this event, make sure we're going here. And, this last 12, 13 months has shown me and my wife both that, is all that really necessary? Do you really have to make everything that everybody invites you to?
That's right.
At the risk of your health,
That's right.
your family, all of that.
That's right.
So this whole thing has taught me the priorities and the most important priorities.
Yeah.
So you're saying things that really matter now come
That's
to the
right.
forefront.
That's right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Right.
And as you talk about priorities, in the midst of, all of us and how it affects our society, you think about our quarterback of the Texans.
Yeah.
He finds himself in a situation, and even though, because we live in Houston, it's just all over us everywhere you go.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And if you listen to it, he was playing football during the season. And it's come down to, like you talk about the priorities. And, you being I can't imagine being a professional athlete, what it takes, to compete on that level.
Right.
And then, what they said he did and, all those kind of things. But then I, thinking about that, you look around our nation and in our society, the military, we've been seeing sexual things. Every part of our society right now is just inundated, entertainment. I mean, I don't care what part. And then, I'm just thinking about that. And then I started thinking, how you look at things, you have to go through your own experience.
Right.
And then I was just thinking about, when I was younger, it was happening.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
But it just wasn't wasn't magnified because of communication. But now we live in like this Twitter world, like they were saying, and everything, this social media, everything is so everywhere now.
Yep.
And then you think about it, and now I was just looking at some different things. Rural, no matter it's rural, small city, lower city, whatever, it's the same thing happening everywhere.
Yeah.
So that's why when you think about it, so we got to help each other make better priorities. And what do y'all brothers think about this whole Deshaun Watson situation?
So you're saying, brother, are you saying that this idle time kind of produced this kind of conduct?
I'm just saying it's a possibility because he mentioned priority. I just thought about, he now, he in the middle of a football season, even though they was losing.
Yeah.
So, I think he was trying to get rid of his
some stress.
Get rid of his stress.
The problem with you saying with Deshaun Watson, it happened once, and it wasn't rectified. He was successful,
right?
And then whatever happened after that, obviously there's a pattern there. But if we go back before that, every person needs to have a role model, a mentor, somebody that can make sure they're on the straight path, bump them back in the right path, and that's what's lacking. He had people that are he has people to call now, whether they reached out to him or whatever the case is. But somebody let him get off track, and some of it he made his own decision.
Yeah,
but even here in the barbershop, you talking about the communications and stuff. Sure. Everything's magnified now. You hit one button, instead of going to one person, it's 10,000. Right. And then you talk about the shootings, people trying to get physical things because they've seen it because this rapper has it. They think, well, I'm going to be like that, and that's fictitious. That person probably just rented it for that video or whatever. So you everything is magnified now.
I think it's magnified, but I don't think there's much of anything new in the world.
Right.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Still the same struggle, but now
whatever
it's more
this
visible.
character is that's been revealed was already there. And I don't sit in judgment on anybody.
Right.
But there's nothing new. These kind of things have been happening
That's what I
since
said,
the invention of mankind.
So what you're saying,
It's
Carlos,
just
is
got
that after
publicized more, and people brought lawsuits, and they
Sure,
saw an
sure,
opportunity to enrich themselves, and God bless them. But this is not new.
Yeah.
This has been happening all along. It's happening when we were young.
That's what I was thinking about, because if you look at the stats in the nation, it's actually gotten so much worse. But it's the most least reported of all sexual crimes or whatever, rape and sexual assault.
Yeah. But we live in, I think we, if we were just to open the book even further, we're in a Me Too culture.
That's it.
And I think it's something as men who in our own right are successful in every walk of the life that we're currently living, there's a draw to success. And that draw to success, I think nobody actually talks to you about. No one says, unless you're an athlete or you're playing a particular sport, but in every other culture, every other arena, no one says to you, hey, this success is going to bring you this. This success is going to bring this. And then as a result of that, if you're not accustomed to dealing with that kind of attention, especially from the female population, you make decisions based upon the level of success, and when no one says anything, you keep doing it over a period of time and think it's okay. And no one talks about it.
And then, talking about that Me Too, that Me Too movement that's going forth in America with the women, they pushing them more to report, talk about it. Even though it happened, whatever, everybody needs to tell their story. So it's being magnified, and that's why more people are being exposed and all those things. And like I said, we've been knowing. You see it. I just think about guys I grew up with. I mean, they was predators when we was way back. You know what I'm saying? They were doing things. You know, I certain guys you wouldn't even hang around with.
That's right. That's right.
Because I didn't want to be you don't want to be associated with something. Man, come on.
That's right.
But it's real though. And then what we do, we just close our mouth. That's what I did. When we was coming along, we know different things, whatever. But now, just like Jamie was saying, they putting it out. This whole movement that started with the women, with that hashtag Me Too. And then
Carlos, let me ask you something. I think I heard you say something, and I'm going to see what my brothers think about it. I think I heard you say after the first time or whatever. Would I be right to say, and see what you guys think about things that start out casual, becomes a habit, from a habit to a stronghold?
Creatures of habit and
complacency. It appears like, they said he had 150 something massages. My goodness. And so did I just
how many?
150 something over this span of.
He was comfortable.
Creatures of habit. Creatures of habit and complacency.
Exactly.
It became his getaway, his escape. That's what I believe. We know it's easy to do until you confronted with a situation. You think you can handle it.
But sin feels like an escape.
Always.
Nobody talks about it, but sin feels like an escape.
Absolutely.
It feels like you're getting away with something. And
then the success always mess with you when you doing it. If you've been successful and that means I'm winning.
Because people give you a pass when you're successful.
And then in the opposite side, open a few doors for you. You can go in here now, that whatever, because many of the testimony to some of the women testified, I invited him back because who he is.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
But things can easily become a stronghold, man. I heard E.V. Hill said, many of us would sin more if we had more. Most of us were too broke to sin more, you know?
Right.
And so when you have the capacity to, but I thought the brother would be a little much sharper to go to IG and all those other places where there's going to be a track record.
Well, let me play, devil's advocate here.
Okay.
There's another side to me to the Me Too movement that nobody
Okay.
talks about.
Okay.
His story is, or initially was, if we move from him, let's talk about so many men who it was just said, and they were innocent.
Right.
They resisted,
Absolutely.
and because they resisted, the woman came out and said, "He touched me. He
Right.
did this. He did that." And we end up finding out that he was as innocent as he said he was.
Absolutely.
And in the public eye, we condemned him, and he was innocent. And I think there's two sides of that coin.
yeah.
Right. Yeah.
There are those who actually did it, but then there are those who didn't. And we are in a culture where if a woman comes out and says that this happened, as a
must be
culture, we automatically try the person and give them a verdict. And I think it's wrong on so many levels.
And how do we protect ourselves against that?
Yeah.
How do we protect ourselves? When I think about my career, every facet, this has been a reality for me because I first was a school teacher. I was basically around women most of the time.
Sure.
Then I moved into fundraising. That's a career basically around women and cocktail parties and galas and all of that kind of stuff. So I always had to be conscious of who was in the room, if we left the door open,
Right.
if I had a witness in the room with me. That has always been in the back of my mind from day one because I've seen it so many times.
Oh, yeah.
That's right.
And if you have an employee and you say something they don't care for, and it's just your word against that person's. So to be honest with you, for me, that's always been in the back of my mind. I need to make sure that I have a witness there. No, don't
Sure.
close that door.
Sure,
Bring
sure.
Sally in here too. Sally, can you sit in with us?
Yeah.
Smart.
Yeah,
Because that's just a reality for us.
Yeah.
And we have to talk to our sons that way. Let them know.
Yeah.
Look,
Yep.
you have to protect your name.
Got to protect
Absolutely.
it.
You have to, and then discuss things with me that I can help you see. If you go into school a certain place, when you get to that college, you get to this situation. Look, things gonna come at you. We not gonna be there.
That's right.
That's
But
right.
what you have
That's
to do
right.
is make the right choices because
right.
things gonna come at you in waves that you're not gonna believe.
That's right.
And so you have to be prepared. You have to make your decision before the wave come.
That's
And
right.
it's gonna come now.
That's
And
right.
that's what I try to always tell my children, that it's coming. You can't stop it.
Right. Yeah.
But so,
But
go
what
ahead.
happens when I make those preparations, right? What happens when I protect myself? If I'm with a female employee and I turn the table to the window, leave the door open, and or I'm out on a date and I'm dating this woman and it doesn't go the way she wanted to go, and now it's he touched me.
Right?
Yeah.
He tried to. So at what point do I not win?
Well, you still have to be true to yourself because, again, a lot of us gonna get charged for something we didn't do.
That's right.
Sure.
In this life, we know it's things they throw at us and those kind of things, but we have to believe that as long as you do what you're supposed to do, eventually your name might be clear. Now, and I don't say you're not going to have no collateral damage in some way on your jobs and different things. That's what, like Dr. Lewis was saying, that's one of the things I dislike. He done lost contracts, he done lost this, he done lost that, and all these different things before the verdict is in.
Before the verdict is in.
Guilty
And so
till
you
proven innocent.
think about that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
then you got to try to rebuild. So it's like, okay, let's let it happen. Then make your decision.
Right.
And the other thing too for me is you have so many women who are bosses now,
Right.
and in a leadership role. And so for me, when you think about the whole Me Too movement, if my supervisor is a female and she's halfway attractive and I work under her and I'm in a corporate environment and we have 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock dinners, entertaining other males.
Customers, yeah.
And I'm responsible for being in her presence on at least once a month for dinner. I could be sitting in a restaurant at 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock having a business meeting, with this client who's a female, and someone walk in
Sure.
and immediately it's not I'm doing the right thing. It's I gotta be doing something wrong.
Wrong, right,
And I feel like the culture that we're in, for men, it's always you're doing something wrong. Right. You can't ever be doing the right thing. It's you're doing something wrong. And I think, it's a pressure, a constant pressure I think leaders are under, especially men in high profile positions, because at any point in time, you could be doing the right thing, but, people automatically assume something has to be wrong in that coffee because he's sitting with her and she's attractive, so it got to be something wrong. Why is he with her? Right. And so
he's married.
And he's married.
Yeah.
It can't be a business meeting, can't be a colleague. But the flip side of that is that it's not just the women who are blaming men, but it's other men who are blaming men. Sure. And I just think it's unfair on so many levels.
Well, Reverend, you just have to stay home.
Well, bottom line.
Speaking in that vein, my daughter asked me recently what I thought about sort of the movement of diversity and inclusion, particularly with women in leadership in corporate or in entrepreneurs or whatever the case may be. Mm-hmm. And I'm all for inclusion. I'm all for equality. Mm-hmm. I've raised 4 daughters, so naturally I want them to have the opportunities that you have or I have or anyone else has. Mm-hmm. But from a male perspective, husbands or boyfriends, what do we think about a woman being advanced and you may be in a dead-end job, for example, and your girlfriend is advanced or your wife is advanced? How do you deal with that? Still wanting to have equality and inclusion, if you will, and that's a big movement in the corporate America. Mm-hmm. Certainly a big movement on at corporate boards. Mm-hmm. They certainly are trying to attract more women of color particularly, on their boards. And there's a lot of opportunities out there.
They are.
Yep.
So what's the balance that we have in that respect?
So I'll just be honest with you. I'm all for women being promoted and elevated. I think where I struggle is when we say we have to put a woman in this position.
Right.
Absolutely. I think we need to put the most qualified person in that position.
Right. Absolutely.
But when I sit around the conference table and I hear we must have a woman in this seat or we must have a black person in this seat, to be honest
that was the argument during the civil rights movement, when blacks became more prominent on the job.
Yep.
The other folks, the white people, typically said, why do we have to have a black in that seat?
Right.
But you got to start somewhere.
You have to start somewhere.
And there are plenty of blacks who are qualified across the board. There are plenty of women who are qualified across the board. As long as they're selecting somebody who's quality, then let's kind of open it up. But
well, I think when you talk about diversity and inclusion, that's for women leadership, that can be very tricky because leadership is very demanding. Mm-hmm. So if my wife is a CEO of a company and I'm an average husband and we've got 2 kids and we're trying to function as a family, and you've got to work these long hours, take the late calls, do the dinners that Reverend Lewis talked about, I'm going to start feeling some kind of way when we're out to dinner and you've got to take this phone call because somebody else is calling you relative to business.
Can we switch seats?
Hell yeah, he in trouble. Yeah, he in trouble. He in trouble.
You don't want the incoming
Trouble.
But that's what we're talking about is, saying one thing you want to be something is one thing, but the responsibility to come with that title is large. And that's just one of the things you got to look at when you want to be. And we're in a different environment now where women work.
Right.
Back in the days, women raised the kids and the husband worked. Right. But we've kind of changed that a little bit to where women want to work because they want their things, and we encourage that. But there's a sacrifice.
How would you feel if the shoe was on the other foot? And you were the CEO or the leader in the corporation?
You have to have that working time balance. I was in that situation where I was leadership and working 12 hours at the job and then come home and give another 3 at the table and all that. And then it just hit me that whatever I did, it was never going to be enough. You never were going to get ahead. Even if you accomplish that, then you're going to be having to do more the next time when they come up with your SMART goals for the next year. So you'll never get ahead of the job. Actually, you can work yourself where you work yourself so much where you get additional work because you're a high performer.
Right.
Yeah.
And the high performer gets all the work while the C&D just does enough to maintain their job.
Right.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
But you have to admit there is a gap. When you look at most corporate structures, it is absent blacks and it is absent women.
Yes.
Now, women bring a very unique skill to a leadership position, and I think a lot of our leadership positions have been dominated by white men.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
And if you look at those layers, women, especially our black women, haven't been given a chance. And I think they deserve the chance. I really do.
Yes.
Now, as a family structure, I believe that if my wife were in a leadership position, those are some conversations that we're going to have. Because I was talking to Mr. Jamie last week, and one of the questions I asked him that I struggle with on my path to marriage is, what happens when my wife is in leadership and she's making the money and she's a leader on the job and she want to come home and now she want to be the leader in the house? So it's a torn fabric there.
Right.
I think our black women deserve those leadership positions, but where does the leadership cut off? Honey, you the leader at the office, but Ken's gonna be the leader at the house.
That's where it cuts off.
But you're gonna have to make sure you communicate that in the right
conversation
way.
has to go
Yeah.
forward.
Yeah.
See,
That conversation has to go forward. Salary and the structure that's there has nothing to do with it. But it has to come to thing. When you get to say, baby, I understand, where you are there. But when you come home, I still might need you to go get me a lemonade and bring it here, rather than kind of going off. I think Doc said one time, you can submit to everybody in corporate structure, but when you get home, you won't submit to your husband. And you just come in here and say, "Well, baby, can you give me oranges? I ain't your slave." That kind of conduct.
But I think I'm big on these coins, right? So the other side of the coin for me then is, I think a man has to not be intimidated
Absolutely.
by his wife's success.
Absolutely.
I think there has to be a sense of equality, across the table
relationship, right.
in the relationship. We may not be equal in roles, but we are equal in responsibility.
Right.
And I think that women play a major role, as Kenneth said, play a major role in corporate America, and they bring, I think, a level of nurturing. They bring a level of emotion that is sometimes needed, because I think as men, a lot of times we're so matter of fact, that we initially make a decision, on this is the facts and this is what it is. But there are some decisions, even as a pastor, that I recognize that needs an emotional or some empathy in that particular area that sometimes as men we don't have enough of. And so I do think that, again, a man has to have a level of respect for his wife or the woman in order to be in, conjunction with what she does at a leadership role.
Yeah, there are a number of studies, and this goes back to the corporate side, but there are a number of studies, and CEOs tout this all the time, that where there is diversity of thought, diversity of complexion,
Right.
diversity of gender, then studies have shown that companies perform better. And as a stockholder, that's what you want. You want the company that performs the best.
yeah.
So in order to do that, you have to open up the ranks, because if you have everybody who looks the same, who feels the same, or the same gender, then you really don't get that diversity of thought and leadership
That's right.
that Andre is talking about.
Just this week, black female took over, first time ABC News chief
Disney. Yeah.
over that.
Yeah.
Disney, this big company. You would think I've already had that in place, and being qualified. I dealt with during the time of Harvey, the chief administrator there at Ben Taub at that time was a sister, MD, well qualified, sharp. Every morning during the disaster, we had our huddle, and she had a plan every morning. What could you say? All I could say, man, Dr. Brown, I really applaud you for having something in place every day. And so we got behind and supported her, and I wanted to support her because she looked like me. But she not only was she organized, she was very competent every day and compassionate. When things got out of place, she would pull it all back together and would come back and say, hey, I need you to do this, I need you to do that, because there were no, she didn't look down on people. She took people and just put them in place and made that operation tick. And I so much, when I got an opportunity, I sent her an email to say, I absolutely applaud how you have handled this disaster,
Wow.
Yeah.
But
So let me ask you a question. Do any of you have a problem with women leading you?
Leading where, sir?
Leading you in terms of management. In
I
terms
think,
of
as Bart said, as long as they're efficient and they have a plan of action, I have no problem with it at all.
yeah, right.
I don't have a problem with it at all either, because I mean, if someone can do something, they can do it.
That's right.
I mean, sometimes we got to we got to be a man enough to let a woman be a woman.
Sure. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right.
You understand what I'm saying?
That's right.
I'm not going to try to take your person from you to be my person.
That's right.
Right.
We got to learn how to be our own person, be the man that we are. That's not taken away from us.
That's right.
Yeah.
Because that's what a lot of time in marriage is what happened is of a manhood overtake their womanhood, and you put your wife in prison, then you don't get the full woman you need.
That's right. That's
And
right.
if you allow her to be herself and let all her gifts come forward, who is going to benefit the most?
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Ron, I think I heard you say first thing was qualified for the position.
Yeah.
Not because of gender or not because it's time for it, but you're qualified, you're just qualified.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
In my experience, I've had lots of bosses who were unqualified per se, and that makes my job harder.
Sure.
So I'm going to respect you whether you're male, female, black, white, yellow, purple. If you know what you're doing, you have a plan of action,
Right.
and you make my job a little bit easier, or I can at least walk on side of you so that we can reach the ultimate goal.
I remember when blacks were beginning to emerge as leaders in corporate America, and whites and others said something similar, that as long as they're qualified. I think that's an issue there. There should be some level of presumption that they're qualified
Makes sense.
to get to that level.
Yeah.
Not if they're qualified. Well, they wouldn't have gotten promoted to that if they were not qualified. So I always was sensitive about that phrase, as long as they are qualified. Well, were you qualified when you were there?
Yeah.
But here's a question. Let me ask you this. Do you feel like people are saying that based on experiences or biases?
Probably both.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of both, right?
Yeah.
So some people are in some positions that perhaps they shouldn't be.
Right.
But it's not gender, it's not black, it's not race. They're just not qualified.
Right. That's right. Yeah.
That's
right.
sort of my take on it.
Right.
Comes to mind a few years ago, right here in Houston, at Pennzoil, sister was in, I think maybe HR, and they told her she wasn't qualified for the next level up. And so she went back and got a master's. I'm qualified now. But when she got a master's, they wanted to ship it to the Boston market, right? And she fought back at that. And so stayed right here, continued to get an education, and they brought a young white male in and put him over her. So she and several other sisters filed a lawsuit there. They had a little class action suit. They won the suit based on the testimony of this white guy who came and says, look, I'm going to just be honest. She's much more qualified than me.
Yep.
Why am I her boss?
Wow.
And that's what turned the whole case. And it turned out to be $7-8 million that Pennzoil had to come off because I'm qualified. You said I need more. I get more. And then you still find a reason not to promote me. Tell you what we'll do. We'll take it to civil court.
Right.
Yeah.
And it happens all the time.
Yeah, that's a reality for a lot of people, right?
Sure. Right.
Yeah.
But everybody shouldn't be in leadership, though.
Right.
Not everybody.
Somebody can have all the qualifications on paper
Right.
that you would
still
want,
not have.
Yeah.
but they're not a leader,
They're not a leader.
and they
Or
shouldn't be
do
in
they
leadership.
not have the experience as well.
And experience
Because it's
as
one
well.
thing to have letters behind your name,
Yeah.
Right.
but if you don't have the experience,
and the temperament
That's right.
to be a leader. I
That's
mean,
right.
it's not just your education or these sort of things. There's a lot else that goes in with that.
And the other thing is who's judging whether or not you're capable of being a leader. Because some of the people who are in judgment of whether or not a person is capable, they're not necessarily capable to judge.
Yeah, they come with their own biases.
They come with their
already
own
from you
biases already.
Right away, you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, if I don't like women leading me, and a woman comes to the table for an interview, immediately I'm turned off.
Right.
If I don't like black people and a black person who's qualified comes to the table, I'm immediately turned off, and so on. So I think there's so many, additions to, this whole terminology about leadership and all the other things that go along with it. I just think that, it's all muddied to some degree. Yeah, it's muddied to some degree.
We got a good example, the HISD. Superintendent. Sure. You know what I'm saying? They wouldn't give it. Then she went to a much smaller. And got more money.
And got more money. Wow. And got more money. At the end of the day. What to me, I think that also brings up the issue of race. With everything that's going on in the pandemic, I think, this whole issue of race has been a daunting task to try to overcome. The more I try to navigate my own emotions and feelings, moving from the East Coast to the South, living in Massachusetts until I'm 15 and then moving to the South, it's a distinct difference, in my opinion, culturally. The way we were taught in the North to deal with racism, you dealt with it up front. You dealt with it with education. In the South, I've always felt that there was there's two different kinds of terminologies and two different kinds of people who deal, especially black people who deal with racism. There are those who just kind of let it go because my grandmother let it go, my grandfather let it go. You need your job, don't say nothing. And then there was the ones that just wanted to fight. I grew up in a culture where you just got more education so that they could not, challenge you in that area. How have you guys dealt with racism in the culture that we're in?
I facilitate it every day. And I've reached a point in dealing with racism where I feel like I'm screaming, but nobody's listening. The other day, I'm glad you brought that conversation up. The other day I was in a session and we were talking about Procter & Gamble has a set of videos called The Pause, The Look, and The Talk.
Yeah, I've seen that.
We were talking about I was facilitating through the talk video and had a white man adamant against the talk. He wanted to know what's so special about a black man versus a white man having this talk with their child. He said everybody ought to have a talk, right? You should talk to your children, I should talk to mine. But what he didn't understand is the nature of the conversation is different. He didn't understand that. Yeah, we ought to all have conversations with our children to be respectful, right? But having a black son and dealing in a racist system, I have to tell my son, look, I would rather you be over compliant, take the ticket, or go to jail and give that money to the court rather than give that money to the funeral home.
Right.
That's right.
And he didn't understand
That's
that.
right.
He didn't understand that I have to tell my son, hey, you have to, in essence, make yourself look at the least intimidating you can before, in order to save your life.
Right.
Well,
That's right.
just the other day, I was walking in my neighborhood, and a white man had the unmitigated gall
Reverend,
to
sound like
stop.
you was gonna say something else.
See, I'm struggling because I'm gonna get to a question in a minute.
Okay.
He had the audacity to ask me, "Can I help you?" I'm walking in the neighborhood.
Yeah.
What about me says to you, I don't belong here?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Man, I'm hot. I'm hot all over again.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I had to help him understand that the same tax authority he write his tax check
That's
to
right.
is the same tax authority I write my tax
That's right.
check to. And I also had to help him understand, can I help you? So my question, and I'm sorry,
Yeah, go ahead.
I didn't mean to take.
Go ahead. We're
No,
waiting on this
go
barber
on.
anyway. So
Race
we got time. We got time.
We got time.
He ain't taking the clippers
About to
yet.
walk out of here.
He picked up the clippers.
My question, brothers, because I need this wisdom. I know I've clowned a little bit, but I'm
Yeah,
serious.
yeah,
I need
yeah.
some more of this wisdom. At what point will we be seen?
Yeah.
Will we be seen? Is that what you said?
Yes. Yes, sir.
That's tough to answer.
really.
And it frustrates us all. Sure. And on that topic, and I'll circle back, but, you know, we've got to, I think about George Floyd, I think about all the other men, black men particularly, who've been killed by police officers for existing, basically.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm reminded of, you spoke about the talk, but I think the talk as well as how we talk to our kids, our young boys. You've got young boys, so do you as well.
Yep.
And there's just things that we need to tell them. And for women who have boys that don't have men in their life, they need to get a man to talk to those kids.
That's right.
And, you know, if you stop by an officer and you brought this up, you know, you got to turn your light on inside your car. You got to make sure your hands are seen, like that lieutenant of a week or two ago.
Sure.
Put your hands on your steering wheel or on your dashboard. Make sure they're seen. If the officer asks you to show them your license, you got to say, I'm going to my pocket. I'm going to pull my license out. I'm going to my glove compartment to pull insurance out. You can't make strange and sudden moves. And kids need to know that. Young men particularly need to know that. And I know a lot of them do, but a lot of them don't as well. And humility is, sometimes you got to have a little humility. And so you can live for another day.
And I have to pray that he make it home.
Yeah.
So my son said something to me maybe about a year ago that messed me up. He said, you know, Daddy, I know you. And he said, some stuff you just don't put up with. Why did you let that cop talk to you like that? And you know, even in helping him to appreciate, it was on Missouri City about a year and a half ago or so. Police officer pulled me over right on Highway 6 in front of Kitty Hollow Park. And I'll never forget, I wasn't speeding, but he pulled me over and he came to my car agitated, just completely lost it. And I put on all the lights because both my sons are in the back seat, and I put on all the lights, and it was dark, and I put on all my lights, and I followed all the procedures that you're talking about, Jamie. And he was still agitated. And I started getting agitated. But in the back of my mind, I got these two boys back here. Sure. And so I want to set the right example. I set the right example. I didn't get a ticket. He talked crazy to me. I drove off, and we got halfway down Highway 6, and Aaron looks at me and says, Daddy, why you let him talk to you like that? You would have said something. And I had to go into this explanation, but it took me 10 minutes to gather my thoughts because I was so agitated that we always have to be the one to suppress ourselves so that we can live.
That's right.
And it's a part of you that's just kind of like, I wouldn't put up with that from anybody else.
Right.
But I got to tolerate it from them.
As an example.
And it's a constant agitation to have to deal with that all the time if I'm real about it.
And unfortunately, we're teaching our kids to do that, right?
We are.
Yeah.
So Regina and my son, my 14-year-old, they got stopped by police just last week. And he put his lights on. The first thing my son told my mom, just put your hands up. Just put your hands up. So they're both in the car with their hands up. And for me, when they came home telling me this story, it's just like, this is our reality.
Yeah.
As a black family, this is our reality. And the question becomes, you know, will this always be our reality?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because obviously videotapes, audio tapes ain't enough.
Yeah. Not enough.
Before, we didn't have it on tape.
Right.
Right.
So if you take a step back on where we are today, where we came from, there's a lot of innocent souls that aren't here with us today.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
So as
Yeah.
fathers, there's a responsibility. When you're going to start driving, there's a couple of things I need you to know. I need you to take you down this list of things to do.
That's right.
You know, and it doesn't matter what neighborhood you're in.
Right.
Right.
You know, many
That's
times if you, how many of our athletes been pulled over in
their own-
neighborhoods because you got a real nice car, you know, and that's target that you know, just targeted you just because you're in a nice neighborhood and what are you doing in this kind of car? You know, and that's coming to mind to me about the brother in Central Park with being accused. You know, found out he didn't do that. Another brother in an upscale apartment place. What are you doing here? You've got to prove that to me that you live in this apartment. Lady, I got a key. I live here.
Yeah.
And I think what we're saying, are we still subject to that kind of issues where we have to prove all the time that we belong? Because we are everywhere.
And that we're not doing something wrong.
Right,
You know,
right.
when I go to the grocery store or even in an elevator and I'm by myself and a white woman comes in, immediately my anxiety goes up
Oh,
here
yeah.
because
It's-
in my mind, all she has to do is dislike me.
Absolutely.
And get off that elevator and say, I did something to her. And I don't get the benefit of the doubt. And then the other part, you know, again, here I'm with these coins again. There's a culture of black men, black women who have arrived and they have relationships with the other side at the benefit of who they are. And what ends up happening when you have dialogue with those individuals, it's you should have complied. You should have did the right thing. You should have did this. And that agitates me more than anything because it's I've ascended to a certain level and now I've forgotten about the struggle. You know, it's not a struggle for me, so I don't know why it's a struggle for you. Right. And that just takes me to a whole nother place. I have no respect for that person at all.
Did we not see the video just a few days ago? White guy in a pickup truck, the police officer hanging on the door, banging and all of that. They didn't even try to tase him or anything. Had he been black, he would have been dead. He wouldn't have gone to jail.
Right.
You know?
Right.
South Carolina, you go in the church and shoot up the church and you get a chance to go buy McDonald's or Burger King. You know, so we see this disparaging gap and difference in how we're treated. I guess our question is, will that continue? Perhaps yes. And where do we start? And I heard Doc say the other day, Dr. Jakes said that we've got to move somewhere from the protest to some kind of a policy. That means that we've got to be in the courthouse. We've got to make sure. And I'm tired of these brothers. And I've just separated myself from all of my friends who don't vote.
That's right.
All of them who don't vote. And I got some that I've just deleted. You know, I like to scroll, select, and delete. You know.
But can we be on the same page? See, the issue for me, I've been in white schools all my life. The 1 year I went to a black school was Madison High School. When I moved to Houston, I went to Bel Air High School. And I've been around the well-to-do blacks most of my life. And there is a misnomer, a myth, if you will, that because they've been accepted at the high school level, at the college level, they have a tendency to disagree with everything we've said here.
Right.
Because that has not been their experience, but really it has. Because there are the black jokes in the white groups, but they overlook them. Because they're not attached to the culture, so to speak. They don't see themselves as black people. They see themselves as people. And so I think, if we're going to create policies, we all got to be on the same level.
Exactly.
And all of us have to understand that you got where you got to because of what somebody else did.
Right.
Exactly.
And so we have
right.
so many well-to-do blacks who disassociate themselves from the culture. I want to live in a nice neighborhood, but I'm not going to distance myself from the culture. And then we have so many blacks who moved into nice neighborhoods and disassociate themselves with the culture.
Right.
I go to a black church, but I don't agree with them. I go to a black church. I have black friends, but I don't really deal with them. We got to get away from that.
Right. And That's one of the things that really has hurt us, and has kept the one who have made it from helping others to make it. Because they're keeping it here and saying that's y'all and that's us.
Absolutely.
And it's just like you said, I have friends and known people for years, and when I worked in corporate America, whatever, it was like, okay, even though you in the print shop and you doing whatever you doing, you're not in one of the more professional things, so therefore we can't go to lunch, and we can't just discuss whatever. And then it's always a surprise people when they see that you can actually have discussion with them about the things that's real, and then they don't want to be honest about the real reality. I always tell them, you just need to always remember, you the exception, not the rule.
That's right. That's right.
And I said, you don't understand what a true blessing is. You've been blessed to be here. Now it's your responsibility to help some of the rest of us.
That's right.
Get up, whatever.
That's right.
So don't ever take it for granted that just because you have this particular, it's people down here have some of those ingredients, but they just can't break that ceiling.
That's right.
Yeah.
So we have to make sure, be honest in about where we are, and that's one of the things that really has hurt of a community, of the people as a whole.
Yeah, I know a few of those people that you talked about, Andre.
There you go. Oh yeah.
But I'll tell you though, they have black sons too.
Yeah, they do.
And the sons drive on the highway just like you and I or our kids, and they get pulled over. They're just another black kid.
Yeah.
Right.
And they have concerns about their sons. They have concerns about the community. I know many people who contribute a lot of their time, a lot of their resources, their money in helping to bring everybody else along. Everybody can't be here and everybody can't be here.
That's right.
You can do things to help the community at large. I know a lot of people who spend a lot of resources in trying to help the community that hadn't been as blessed as they are, because they may have a relative or a sister or a brother who's not in the position that they are, but they still know those people, and they still want those people to do well. So I have a little bit of a different take on it, but I respect that. But there are good people out there in all stratus, economics.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I know the shop's going to be closing in a minute, and none of us has gotten a haircut.
And we still don't have these haircuts.
I don't want to run past something Reverend Lewis said just a second ago when he talked about whites and blacks in the white school and how they'll let those comments fly over their head. It's the same thing in corporate America.
Oh yeah.
They've termed it unconscious bias.
That's right.
Sometimes I have to wonder if it's really unconscious.
Oh yeah.
So I asked the question earlier, will we ever be seen? Well, I think one way that we could start to be seen is to start addressing what I call the foolishness.
Yep.
Those unconscious biases that they levy, like I was given the comment last week, if George Floyd, if Derek Chauvin, well, it did feel like George Floyd was on trial, but if Derek Chauvin is found not guilty, how your people gonna act? So what do you mean, how are my people gonna act? So are you asking me how black people are gonna act? What do you mean by that statement? Why does it have to be a black thing? Why can't it be a right and a wrong thing? So I think we move forward by addressing those unconscious, implicit biases, which I think are explicit, and help them, and help to educate them on why you are saying, what's wrong with what you are saying.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. You got to be bold enough to do it.
You have to be bold enough.
At the sake of being called into an HR meeting.
Yes.
That becomes the other thing.
Well, and one thing too about that, I remember when I would change from one job to another, one company to another, you're learning the job, but you're learning the culture.
Sure.
And there's always one person, when they get comfortable or relaxed,
That's right.
that makes a statement that kind of tests where you are relative to your culture or your race.
Yeah.
That's true.
That is the moment that you have to say, wait a minute, I don't do that. Because after you make that comment, you don't make that comment, they go to
They're comfortable.
they're comfortable, then they go to the break room or whatever, then they make another comment in front of a larger group.
Right.
You didn't snip it in the bud when it happened that one time.
Yeah.
And that's just corporate America. You know, probably not as bad now because of things that have bubbled up. But as I told my son, I don't know, a few weeks ago, maybe a month ago, I said, what we're going through right now is eye-opening. Everything was kind of on auto control before when Obama was there. You still had race stuff, but it was, just kind of under the radar. Then the next president came in, all this stuff bubbled up. I said, you can't get complacent. Don't ever think you don't have to work harder as the next person. You got to work harder.
That's right.
And we have to have that talk. It's more than once.
Yes.
It's repetitive.
Continue.
Absolutely.
Because the first time you have that talk, they might not get it. But as you grow older, you understand the talk because somebody else might experience, your friend or whoever.
Yeah, I've had that police talk with my daughters as well, by the way.
Yeah.
And I think we have to do that. It's not
Yeah,
just
you have
boys,
to.
but,
Sure.
but you've got to talk
Correct.
to the girls
That's
as well.
so true. Yep.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, brothers, I don't know about you guys, but I don't know that we're going to get haircuts tonight.
Right.
So I think I'm going to call it an evening.
Okay.
And I'm going to invite all of you to join us next Wednesday night as Dr. Lewis is going to come to us with a Bible study talking about overcoming some of these issues that we've addressed tonight. So I invite you to join us next Wednesday night. But I'm out of here.
Yeah.
This is enough for me.
If I'm in the bar.
Yeah, this is great.